In order to allow Pakistanis to use durable excavator silkworm buckets, their small workshops here have to produce them independently. Before they are made, the masters have already marked the dimensions in advance. At this time, the masters only need to divide them according to the marks. The process is still relatively comparative. With a little effort, the required steel plates have been cut. Since the overall shape of the cicada bucket is curved, the masters need to use a hydraulic press to bend it. In order to prevent problems with the curvature, the masters will use curvature standard steel bars for comparison. This steel plate in the contrast part has been skillfully operated by them. After the molding is completed quickly, in order to ensure that the overall size of the base plate is correct, Fu will use Yiki to cut the excess corners and corners. After finishing, it can be spliced to prevent the steel plate and the base plate from being held together flat. Now the problem is that we will weld the steel plate sample on the line very quickly during the splicing process. After the master cuts out the standard arc, he only needs to use electric welding to quickly weld it in place, so the side plate is only in place. The head uses a thickened steel plate because this can not only reduce the wear of the cicada bucket, but also reduce the overall weight to a limited extent. After welding the side plates on both sides, Fu has also begun to install the wall panels that were cut in advance. It is relatively easy to weld the joints, and it is a test of the master's skills. The cicada has to withstand a lot of force in daily work, and the master is also very careful during the welding process. The welding process consumes more electrodes. Up to half of the entire cicada bucket needs to be rubbed by hand. The masters also started to make the dual plate used to connect the excavator's forearm. The production process is very simple. The craftsman only needs to use the electric welding bucket sleeve to weld the bones to shorten the cicada bucket. Production. They only need to use electric welding to firmly weld the installed backplane. When welding the bucket teeth on the head, this is also a skilled craftsman. They will first perform simple welding and fixing, and then use the crimping teeth to compare the spacing to ensure that there are no problems. Then they can fully weld and fix. After a night of overtime, the operation is completed. The main body of the cicada bucket has already been made. The masters only need to use the excess steel plate to cut it out. In order to improve the wear resistance of the bottom of the cicada bucket, they will use steel plates to protect the small cicada buckets. The steel plate is not particularly thick. If the weight is too high, it will affect subsequent use. Normally, if we use aluminum strips and steel plates, the wear resistance must be in place. After the main body of the cicada bucket is processed, they can install the bucket plate used to connect the forearm and choose to install it. During the positioning process, we quickly ensured the position through multiple measurements of tape measure and steel paper. When installing the side blades on both sides of the cicada bucket, we first used electric welding for simple welding and then used B-cuts to cut out the screw fixing holes. Cicada dough was going through the operation of their heads and faces. It took more than a day to complete. How do you feel about their production process? If you had 10 points, how many points would you give?